Welcome to Nest Egg Narratives, the podcast exploring the future of credit unions. We sit down with leaders shaping the industry to uncover what it takes to serve members in a changing world. I'm William Glass, CEO and co-founder of Ostrich, and your host for today's show. Josh, welcome to Nest Egg Narratives. I got to hear you on a panel, and you had a unique take being one of the younger members on the panel in a leadership role. I'm excited to hear how you view what's happening in the credit union space and what does it take, especially as a small credit union, to compete moving forward today.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Before we jump into the meat and potatoes, what's your earliest memory about finance and how did you end up in the credit union world?
My earliest memory in finance, probably just putting money to work. You know, my daddy did construction while I was growing up, and he used to take me and my brother when we were way too young to be working to kind of help out with some of the stuff around the work site. And remember, we went out of town one time to this restaurant that he was converting from a barbecue chain into a Mexican restaurant. And we finished our work pretty quick, but we were still kind of stuck there because we were out of town. Now, we were in the shopping center where there was a Walmart pretty close, but instead of just going and spending all the money we had just made at Walmart, there was a Dollar General next door and a jewelry store next door, and the jewelry store was throwing away some jewelry boxes, and the Dollar General store next to us was selling rocks, and we took these rocks and put them in the jewelry boxes and sold them for $1 a piece. My dad tells this story as at a young mind, I wasn't trying to just go out and spend my money. I was trying to take this money that I just earned and turn it into more money. But to this day, he tells it like I was built to be a banker. And I wouldn't say that pushed me into the credit unions. It was definitely not planned. But after college, I started doing mortgage lending, and there was a shift in the market where interest rates doubled, so volume dropped. And the firm I was working with, they're local here. They had relationships with credit unions all over the state, even some in Tennessee, some in Florida. When they were letting me go just because they had to downsize, they said, is there anything we can do for you? And jokingly, I just said, well, if I'm a good employee and you want to reach out to some of these contacts you have and put me in touch with them, I'd be more than happy to, interview and try to get into work again. So they set me up with 3 or 4 credit unions around the area. I interviewed with them while I was still working at that firm, and it ended up working out well. You know, my last day at that firm was on a Wednesday. My first day here at the VA credit union was on a Thursday. So I was out of a job for like 12 hours before getting nipped into the credit union industry.
I love that. So that's cool about your dad and already thinking about how can you make your money work for you. Is that something that seeing him in the construction business and how hard he worked and, figuring out ways that you could not go blow money that you just did on a job? What else have you kind of learned from him?
Any blue collar job, when you look at these guys bringing these paychecks in, you realize that there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into bringing that money home. So just finding ways to grow that and not just kind of use it in the present, just blowing it on your wants, but looking into, all right, what's left over? How can I make this double, triple? Just really understanding what goes into making that first dollar and how you can make that money that you work so hard for work for you was something that he instilled in me.
I love that. It's a good lesson, especially when you think about helping members in the credit union space. And it sounds like you learned hard work from him and only being out of work for 12 hours between a first role before moving into the credit union space. Talk to me about what it was like going from the mortgage side to credit union, or where did you kind of start at the credit union?
During college, I had a lot of management experience. I worked in the entertainment industry. I was a GM for a couple of the large restaurants in downtown. So I already had kind of a manager background. And then whenever I went into mortgage lending, it was a lot more rigorous than consumer lending. You're trying to meet government guidelines so that you can sell them to the secondary market and all that. It's just real strict. So when I came into the credit union industry, they started me out as just a loan officer, but I caught on quick because of all the other experience I had with other companies. About 6 months after being a loan officer, there was a position open for the chief operating officer, and they ended up giving me that position. So I kind of continue working my way up the ladder. And here just recently, a couple months ago, they announced me as the CEO-in-waiting. So it's been, an awesome ride. There's a lot of challenges that come with it, but been a pleasure to work for a company that appreciates that kind of commitment to the job and rewards it in such a manner.
That's exciting. Well, congratulations. I wasn't aware of the CEO-in-waiting
I
announcement. So
appreciate that.
congrats, Josh. That's big news. The Tuscaloosa VA credit union, right? It's a smaller credit union. You guys are unique, and having started with veterans, how do you think about expanding in the future, and how do you compete as a smaller credit union with all the digital tools going on, but also even the larger credit unions in your footprint, such as Alabama Credit Union, which is one of the largest in the state that's right down the street from you guys?
Yeah, it's working at a smaller branch. It's got some perks. We have 3,000 members, but we know most of our members. They come in. We actually have two branches. One's a small branch up in Northport. Then our main branch is located inside of the VA Medical Center. So we get to see a lot of those employees. The medical center also has programs to help out with troubled veterans. And a lot of those programs, they get housed here on campus. So they need a financial institution that they can access as far as getting their disability, things like that. So we get to see a pretty wide group of different people come through. With a branch in Northport away from the medical center, we get to see the locals, we get to see the employees here, we get to see people coming in from out of town. They're going to be housed here, so they automatically qualify for our field of membership. I think as far as trying to compete with the bigger guys, there's just so many roadblocks. So they've got larger marketing budgets than we do. So trying to break through that noise has been a real challenge. We've talked about doing things such as podcasts like this, using social media a little bit more, and maybe even bringing on some influencer partnerships, because it's all about the next generation. There have been studies where those types of marketing tactics have been successful in other industries. So we'd like to start taking advantage of some of that moving forward. And that's just kind of where we're at right now with the things that are going on in our credit union.
That makes sense. And you're thinking about what are those kind of unique things that you can do that others aren't doing, I think makes a lot of sense. We've had conversations about what are some of the things that make you all unique, and leaning into that history of being a VA credit union. Obviously, your field of membership is now open in the counties that you guys serve, but like, how do you lean into the roots of the credit union and kind of tell the story? And like you said, of the 3,000 members, y'all are pretty close to them and understand that. So how do you double down on that kind of advantage that you have?
We get to be real personal people. We don't have automatic decision loans or automated decision. We don't have a lot of tech savvy stuff where it feels like you're working with a robot or anything. So you get that personal touch. And then being as small as we are with the budget restraints we have on marketing, it's really about the word of mouth. If we're treating our members well, they're going to go out and let their friends and family know, hey, look, if you need some help, you need to go down to my credit union and talk to them, talk to Josh, talk to Fernita, talk to somebody that's in a position to help you out with this, and they'll kind of walk you through the steps. We do it all the time for the program members, the employees here. It's just, if you need to talk to somebody, come inside a branch and we'll help you out. It's not like trying to work your way through one of those automated voice systems to get to a real person. We're real easy to get in touch with. People seem to like that.
Absolutely. I feel like that's one of those things you call a customer support line, and you can tell it's an AI or an IVR, and you're like, let me just hit zero however many times till I can get to a human, or give me a human, because I don't have a simple request. Otherwise, I would have been able to solve this already myself. One of the things that y'all have done, Josh, has gone through a core conversion, which is a big piece of setting yourself up for success, both for the employees to be able to serve members, but also thinking about, well, what are the small things that we can do where we can give access to members that want more digital tools, but still be able to provide the personal experience. What was that experience like? It sounds like it's not an easy undertaking, but what are some of the lessons you learned going through that core conversion and things that you're excited about?
The biggest lesson that we learned was just how to be effective in communicating with our members. We had posted stuff on our website. We had mailed letters out. We even put up a couple posters inside our branches thinking that would be sufficient. And we were honestly probably only reaching around half of our 3,000 members, letting them know that these changes were coming up. So it gave us a chance to step back and say, well, what could we have done better as far as letting people know in our membership base that, hey, changes are coming up that you need to be aware of. Ultimately, we decided that just moving forward, we need to have more of a direct channel of communications. So instead of trying to mail them letters that might just end up in the trash or put something on a website for someone who's had an account with us for 20 years that only logs in to check their balance, they're not coming on there to see what's new with the credit union. We're probably going to start using group chats, group emails, group text bombs so that we can directly communicate with them in a means that we know they're using more often, just to make sure that they're aware of these changes. Whenever we got through with the conversion, we had set it up so that there was a multi-factor first-time login. That was to ensure that during this time of sensitive uh, access where anybody could pretend to be you could get in, we wanted it to register with a device, whether that be your email or your phone, so you could get in. And that was really the biggest thing that we were trying to get across as far as, hey, after the conversion, everyone needs to pay attention to the first time logging in. Going to be a little different because while it is the same website, it's just a new host that's got this personal information for you and they're trying to keep it secure. So we probably dealt with phone calls for a month after the conversion where people were just completely unaware that this is how things were going to be the very first time. And it's just a one and done. Once you sign in, you're secured, you've already registered your device and everything. But really just trying to get that point across, we saw that we could do a better job at communicating with our members.
It's a good lesson to come off the back of it. How do you have those direct channels of communication when, like you said, somebody's been with the credit union for 20 years and they're used to doing things a certain way, and how do you jolt them out of the, I'm just going to bypass everything on a website and just go look at my balance? Sometimes we get in that tunnel vision when we have a certain way of operating.
Absolutely. I think we're all just creatures of habit. And if I know how to work a website, I'm just going to get in there and work it the way I know it. I'm not going to look at the new links and stuff like that. I'm not really browsing for something. I know what I'm there for. So, like I said, we dealt with a little bit of backlash on that, but we've got everything resolved now and everybody's working pretty smooth.
That's awesome. And what has happened now since you've done that conversion? Has it enabled more opportunities for you to serve members better?
We wanted to change was just to be more of the tech savvy credit union for our members. Talked earlier about trying to reach out to that next generation and more modern marketing tactics. I think along with that, you have to have something that's appealing to that generation. So on our old system, we used to have 2 or 3 different apps from different vendors that you could go to and manage your cards, manage your transactions, get alerts for any activity going on in your account. And we've consolidated all of that down to an in-house mobile app. You don't have to go out and have 3 or 4 different logins and passwords to do it. Now you can just sign into our mobile app and you have all of those tools there. So consolidating the tools into one place was probably the biggest benefit. And I think our members have really enjoyed that a lot.
One place versus having to go here and then wonder, is especially with all of the changes with more scams and frauds and all that stuff that the whole industry is dealing with. Hey, this is the one place I know that I'm secure. I'm in the TVACU app. I'm where I'm supposed to be. So I think that makes a lot of sense from a member experience perspective. What kind of excites you about the future? Really excited about?
One of the things that excites me the most is just this renewed focus on purpose. You heard in the news recently that because of decisions that CEOs have made or other businesses have made, that consumers have been boycotting those companies. I think consumers are looking for institutions that reflect their values, and credit unions are perfectly positioned for that.
Yeah, that purpose is definitely aligned. So when you think about Tuscaloosa VAs in particular, what makes you guys unique just outside of the credit union experience in general?
Well, one of the things that makes us most unique is that we're not really trying to give you some sort of sales pitch that you have to do business with us. We're okay with you taking business elsewhere. We just want you to be educated on the fact that this is how the system works, right? So talk about these credit recovery programs that are out there. We love to give financial literacy little snippets to our members when they come in. If we're turning somebody down, we're trying to educate them why we're turning down and not just let them leave with a cold no, but educate them as to next time when you come in, this needs to be what we see so that we can get you approved. It's one of those things where we used to have credit cards
Right.
that we would do secured so that you could try and build credit, but that's pretty risky because without a lot of follow up or touching that member a lot, they could find themselves negatively impacting their credit score. Because if you've got a maxed out credit card or even 50% of the balance used, that's going to negatively impact it. So we've moved over to what we call just a pledge loan, and
Right.
you give us money, we put it in on hold, and as you make payments on that loan, we release those funds. So it's not really like you're out of that money. Um, and then what that does is that's just basically an easier starting point for someone who's trying to repair their credit. It's easier for me to explain that if you take out a 6-month loan at a really low interest rate and you make those payments on time, your credit score is going to go up. Whereas, trying to explain the nuances with a credit card and how you have to manage it and review what's going on and
Yeah.
make sure you're keeping a little balance. I mean, it's one of those things where if I give you $300 and I get a $300 credit card, I might need that $300. So as soon as I leave and a week later I need that money, I might go out and use that credit card and run it all the way up to 300. With an installment loan like this pledge loan we're doing, you can't keep borrowing from that. So it's just an easier pace to keep up with as far as making payments to help yourself better your position.
I love that. When I was building credit in college, I was scared of credit cards, but wanted to build credit because I knew it was important. And so I I did just a personal loan, installment loan. I think it was secured. It was like a couple $100 that I had to put in the account. And then I got a $200, put a little extra in for interest, and the payments were automated. And it helped me build credit and get comfortable with borrowing and also repaying without having to actively, like you said, with a credit card, even if it's a secured credit card, figure out how much are you spending on it, and am I going to be able to pay the full balance off, and what's the interest going to be on that, and how does that impact credit score, where it's like a nice pledge loan that it's easy to understand and follow.
It's one of those things where we might have some program members come in here at a pretty low spot in their life, right? And they just need to use us to have a place to get their direct deposit, right?
Right.
But whenever they graduate from that program, if they keep that account with us, we're still getting to follow up with them and touch base and see, hey, you're looking for a home. Well, this is what they're going to be looking for. This is what you need to pay attention to your bank accounts, because they're going to need copies of transaction history for like 3 months. Just getting them prepared for those bigger steps, something we love to see.
When you can see a member that comes in at not a great point in their life and help improve is definitely very rewarding. Do you have any kind of examples or any stories that stand out that highlight the impact that y'all are having?
What I was just mentioning, I was thinking of one member specifically. He came into the medical center program. He was housed on campus. He just needed a place to set his money so he could access it. And once he graduated from that program, he kept his account here. Now he moved to Birmingham, right? But once a member, always a member. So we were still able to serve him. And he came to us asking about a mortgage loan. And we went through it and said, look, this is what we want to see you do before we even apply. Because right now, just looking at it, we know that this is not going to pass. There's closing costs. So, you come in talking about a 0% down payment. That's great. There's still closing costs that are going to be associated with that loan that you have to bring to the table. Talk to him about how much he needed to save, talk to him about escrow and what he was going to have to expect as far as a payment for what house he was looking for and all that. Just educated him on all that. Now, he didn't book that loan with us, but he made sure to come in here and thank us for educating him and helping him prepare for that, because when it came down to it, it was a pretty big deal for him.
Absolutely. Like you said, at the end of the day, even if a member goes somewhere else and maybe it doesn't make sense because they're in Birmingham, but yeah, being able to actually be that resource, who's he going to turn to next when he's got other questions or bigger questions? And at that point, maybe it's something that y'all can help him with. So I love that mentality of just let's do what's right for the member at the end of the day. Josh, on the panel, you said something that I thought was really interesting, that was unique, because two branches, a smaller team, that you pretty much interact with almost every employee every day. You have some sort of communication. It's very rare where there's like a day where you don't essentially get to communicate with an entire staff. Can you talk about what that's been like and how that's helped you in the COO role, and, from a leadership perspective, what the value is of being that plugged into the rest of the team?
Regardless of me being the COO, I can still learn from our tellers and loan officers and what's changing as far as members coming in, what are they asking about, what's going on the front lines. So being able to touch all 15 of our employees, if not every day, every 2 days, has been extremely beneficial. I've been surrounded by professional groups since I've graduated college. And it's not always about what I can teach them, but what they can teach me. So being able to go down there and just ask them how things are going, what are they seeing, what's trending right now as far as with our loan department, what are people looking for? Do we need to focus on anything? Are people telling you different rates or lower elsewhere? Just being that in tune with everybody helps us serve the community a little bit better so that we can see what other people are doing out there. It's also one of those things where me being able to touch everybody allows me to cross train everybody. So I can teach my teller line how what they're doing on the teller line affects the lending department. I can teach my lending department what they're doing, how it affects the accounting department. So being able to kind of share that knowledge with everybody so that whenever they're doing keystrokes, they can see, okay, how is this going to affect the next person has to get in here and do something, make their life a little bit easier, hopefully make their life a little bit easier. It's just a perfect little world we got going on right now. It's nice to be small like that for those reasons.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, like you said, it gives a better view of, hey, this is why we do this thing. It's not just because we want to add more work, but it's because you help so and so in accounting be able to actually figure out why did we do this transaction.
If we had 3,000 employees or however many of these larger institutions have, it'd be impossible. You'd have to have 20, 30 different people, depending on your regions and all that, that have to go out there and do that. And then you're expecting them to communicate with themselves again. So it's nice being able to have my hand in all that and making sure it's getting conveyed the way that we want it to from the top.
Absolutely. And speaking of leadership, what's some of the best advice that you've gotten around leadership or lessons that you've learned in your tenure managing teams?
Even when I was in college, one of the biggest things that I heard growing up, getting ready to be a manager in the entertainment industry, was listen twice as much as you speak. So again, I've been surrounded by successful people, and there's a lot of information and life experiences to absorb from just listening to them. It's one thing to keep quiet and have your own thoughts going on while somebody's telling you a story, but it's a completely different thing to actually drown out those thoughts in your own head and truly listen and focus on what someone's saying when they speak. So, me just being around this group and actually listening to them, whether it be work, personal, life experiences, stuff like that, has helped me become a better leader because you have to understand where people are coming from when they bring concerns to you, right? I think everybody wants to be heard, and they might understand that you can't address an issue just as long as you understand where they're coming from and that you're going to look into it and work on it and see if you can resolve it is really what puts people at ease in my opinion.
Yeah, that active listening, like how do you actually really hear what someone's saying? And that gives you, like you said, the context to whether you can solve their problem or not. At least they feel validated and heard, that it wasn't just like, oh, Josh wasn't really listening. He didn't really understand, where it's like, hey, there may be nothing I can do about that. We're going to do this core conversion no matter what. So I know you loved the old system, but sounds like what you liked about the old system was that you understood it, or these couple things. We'll put a focus on figuring out how do we make that workflow work for you. I'm making up an example here, but I can see how, like you said, how do you actually address a real concern?
No, it sounds like you were in the room with us.
Well, we did have a conversation about some of the challenges, were just how do you train people on the system. So I took a shot in the dark that might be a good example there. One of the things that's unique about your story, Josh, is that you're one of the younger folks in a leadership role in the credit union industry. I'm just curious what you'd recommend to other folks that might be younger in their credit union journey and want to ultimately end up where you are, and what advice you have for them to put themselves in that position to ultimately say yes or take the reins if they are presented an opportunity.
I keep saying that I work with a great group here, and then the mortgage firm I worked at beforehand, it was a great group, a lot of professional leaders in there. If you're working at a financial institution, whether it's large or small, there's going to be a great leader there that's willing to tell you about his life experiences and educate you on what he's looking at, and maybe some cross training that goes in. I think just looking to your peers and your supervisor and listening to what they're saying and why they're saying it is probably the biggest resource you can have, because that's going to help you grow within that organization. For us, we have it in policy that if we've got a position that opens up, we want to look at our current employees and ask them to apply first, because they kind of understand how the system works. Aside from that, you've got attorneys, you've got the League of Southeastern Credit Unions that we're involved in. They're all great resources that can help you out when things come across your desk that you're not really comfortable with working through and all that. But I think the easiest and biggest resource that's available that people just don't take advantage of is the group next to you, whether it be in the administrative office or the lending department or the teller line, just making sure that you kind of know what's going on in their workstation and you know how it affects the others. That's the biggest thing for me. Um, when people come in and I interview them, I'm asking about books or podcasts. I'm asking them about what they learned from the people around them, the team that they had at the previous job, because that's what we want to see here. We want to see this collaborative growth.
You're really looking for the experience, and whether it's your experience or it's someone else, a leader that you've worked with that mentored you, and sounds like that's what you're really looking for when you're identifying talent. What can we do to help smaller credit unions thrive?
The smaller credit unions like us, we really just have to help ourselves. We have to make it a more energetic place to work. When you get into these larger institutions, they might have like a mascot, or they might have some sort of meet and greet on a specific day where everybody comes in an hour early and hangs out and makes it fun. These smaller credit unions, you realize that a lot of these guys are merging because of just fatigue, whether that be senior leadership and no succession planning because they can't get someone else younger than them to come in to want to carry that torch. It's more about them just making the environment fun, for lack of a better word. For me, we do a couple different things here, like birthday parties for a small group, but we're small enough that we can actually have these kind of one-on-ones and group events and all that, and it not get in the way of shutting down a couple locations. If you were to do that with a larger institution, I'm sure it would get in the way of your daily operations. But I've seen people put things in place where they just add more color to the environment, I guess. It's one of those things where if you've got a place that's exciting to go in, which you don't think of being exciting, right? But if you could get maybe some sort of like a kid mascot and make kids excited to come in here, that would make the parents excited to come here. And it's like a trickle up system from there. The employees will be excited here because now members are coming in, and then management will be excited because the employees are excited. So, in my opinion, it's all about just making the atmosphere a little bit more energetic. And I don't think there's any kind of outside party affecting that. I think it's all internally.
The answer is, like you said, energy. Yeah. How can you make it fun? How can you, again, bring that identity, make it a fun place for people, members, employees to want to spend time? I really like that framing, the idea that it's not out of our control. One thing I've noticed, Josh, is that you don't push things out on, oh, well, there's some external factor. It's like, well, what can I do? What can we do as a credit union? What can I do as a leader? What can we do to make things better? Because I can't control everything outside of who I am and what I do. And it's all about that ownership. Well, Josh, is there anything in particular that you wanted to make sure that we covered, or any kind of like final words or thoughts that you want to share with the audience?
You can contact me or connect with me on LinkedIn if you're looking forward to hearing some more words of wisdom from me. If you're interested in joining our credit union, you can visit us at TVACU.com. It's open to anyone who lives, works, worships, or attends school in Tuscaloosa or Sumter County. As far as other leaders and other credit union employees out there, just stay grounded in your mission. Help your members, help your staff, help other credit unions. Innovation is exciting, and I'm looking forward to what new technologies are out there to come in the future, but purpose is enduring. And at the end of the day, our work is about people. And if you can keep sight of that, your members will appreciate it, and they'll help you spread the word that people need to be doing business with you. In that regard, just stay true to your mission.
I love that. That was a great way to end it, Josh. I really appreciate you sitting down.
Yeah, absolutely, William. It was a pleasure to be here. Thanks again for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to Nest Egg Narratives, powered by Ostrich, the platform helping credit unions grow membership and drive financial wellness. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to follow and share with a fellow credit union leader.